Troy Tabor, City Council President.
Ronnie Price, Mayor.
Dr. Joseph Ford, council member.
Shelby Carcelari, City Council Member.
Tim Berry, City Council Member.
All right. We're going to do, I'll do the invocation night. Stephen Bishop didn't make it yet. He must be running a little late. So let's do this. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this time together. We pray that all the commotion that's going on in the country and the world doesn't infect us in our decision-making and our city. I just pray that some way or that in the near future, we can all find a way to accomplish the things that are before us and bring this nation back together as a undivided country. And we leave that in your hands, and we just thank you. And in Jesus' precious name I pray, amen.
Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this time we'll open a public forum. Go to the podium, state your name, your address, and keep it to a minimum. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak tonight?
Let's see, name is Steve Adams, and my address is 219 East Pine Meadow Court. And I feel really stupid being here tonight for this request because of everything else going on, so I'll make it as clean and as simple as possible. My wife and I have a 3-year-old, 120-pound Russian Shepherd named Cooper. He's a good boy, but he's big, and we like to take him to the park a couple times a week. He's fixed. What I'd like to see, if it would be possible, because the park is so nice, is that most of the people I talk to come from the different Wichita parks. They say, hey, this is probably one of the nicest in the area. But the difference is that those parks, all the dogs have to be fixed. So there's no commotion with hormones. Now, I'm not a biologist, I'm an accountant. So I know nothing about this, but our vet, a lady up at the countryside, said, look, dogs have a 300% greater smell than people do. So you want to get your dog fixed, because we weren't going to have him fixed. But you want to have him fixed, so it takes out that aggression thing with other dogs, so he can play. So we got him fixed. So we take him to the park, and for the most part, I'd say probably 95% of the time, there's no problem. Most people have their dogs fixed. Occasionally somebody brings in a puppy or a dog that's not fixed, or maybe going through puberty or something, and it just causes commotion. So I want to see if it would be possible to have the two parks split into intact dogs, the smaller park, and then fixed dogs for the big park. And that's it. So again, I feel dumb wasting everybody's time for this, but I feel the safety of the people who are there, because big dogs run. This is my first big dog, and so when he plays with the big dogs, they run, and even though that place is big, they cover a lot of area. Okay, so and they get rowdy, and dogs are dogs, so they can growl and show their teeth and make noise and all this. But again, that's my only request. Just want to see if it would be possible. Some of the concerns we have, though, are with children. Again, when people bring small kids to the big dog park, if they keep track of them, that's fine. But when these dogs run, they've knocked me down before, and it hurts. I played football in high school 30 years ago, and I haven't been hit as hard as I've been by some of these dogs when they're playing. And I just don't want kids to get hurt, but that's a whole separate thing. But the main thing is just to see if we can have one park designated as dogs that are fixed, and then the smaller park designated as for non-fixed or all of the dogs. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and you're always welcome to speak. Public forum, that's what it's for.
Okay. Do I sit, or do I take questions, or how does this work? This is my first time doing this, so I don't know what I'm doing.
Ours too.
Huh?
Ours too.
Oh, okay, great.
This year.
All right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, first one this year, so thank you for bringing that to the council.
I don't know, just based on prior rules and stuff that we have in place, if necessarily splitting two different parks or just requiring the mandate be that, all dogs are spayed or neutered to use the parks maybe is another option as well. But I mean, I think with the vote we had last year in regards to dog ordinance and stuff, I definitely think this is something that we can bring to the table and maybe look into this year.
Actually, your consent agenda has the dog park rules on it. It does not include a rule related to neutering or changing designated one park versus another, or anything like that. Those, as you probably all know, and I'm sure you do since you're active at the park, is one's for large and one's for small. So that would be a change in how we utilize those facilities. But it was on consent because it's a very minute change. We were going to change dogs must be permitted in Andover to be dogs must be licensed and registered in Andover. And Chief Keller had also asked to add that they need to wear their tags, both for rabies and registration. Those seemed like such little changes that we just put it on the consent agenda. But if you'd like to have a deeper conversation about it, you could always pull that off the consent agenda and make it an agenda item.
I've been over there many times with my dog, and honestly, I haven't looked at the rules. Are there rules like please watch your kids, user assumes all responsibility, all that fun stuff? Or because I have been over there and I've seen dogs take out children, because the kids are just running around, and we're using it as a children's park as well.
The dog park rules are in your packet at 7.10, and the only change to what's in that packet from what's on the signs out there today is the word permitted is changed to registration, and that they need to have the tags on. So number 10 is new, it is not on the signage out in the park. And number 9 has changed from dogs must be permitted with the city of Andover to they must be licensed / registered. But otherwise, that is the rules in the park today.
Okay.
And as you stated, some of them are from out of Sedgwick County, even though they're just right across 159th probably.
It's hard to,
They still have to be registered with our city if they're going to be in our park, isn't that correct? So that's something that we need to, pardon me?
Sir, if you approve it tonight.
Yes, yeah, and that's something we can put up signage, but the thing is with, just like any ordinances like that, enforcing is a whole different matter, but it's something that we can at least make an attempt to.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
a couple of the rules, just to throw it out there. One of them is already aggressive dogs must be removed immediately on 5. And then 7 is dogs in heat, sick dogs, aggressive dogs, and puppies under 4 months of age are prohibited already.
Okay.
Not that people follow it necessarily, but not that people necessarily follow like they're supposed to, but it is already rules.
So I haven't been out there to the dog parks. Is there signage?
Yes.
Yep, there is.
Okay.
It has all these, yeah. I love the dogs should be under voice control because I would say 99% do not listen. At least none of them I've ever been around, but
I'd entertain that we go ahead and approve the rules we have here, and since we're adding a new addition to this rule, maybe see how that plays out a little bit, especially as it comes to maybe springtime and warmer weather, to see how it goes, and then kind of maybe revisit it later on in the year, May, June timeframe. Is going to be my response to you, I guess, in regards to, I don't want to create a whole new organization with the two parks that people aren't used to right now. Let's get them used to registering their dogs, making sure that is. And then also another thing to bring to the table is how would we enforce who's spayed, who's neutered, at which park? Because again, it comes down to the police officer, if he gets called out, how are they going to check for that? So that would be one of my big concerns as far as that. But let's try the rules and see how that goes with these new rules first, I think.
I do appreciate you bringing this up. I had a 200-pound Mastiff, so I completely understand
okay.
what you're going through. We used to take her to the park all the time, and, I mean, you'd always get the little dogs, being more aggressive than she was, and I'd get yelled at, so I completely understand.
It's always the little ones.
Gotta watch out for them.
That's the Swan guy. It's always the little ones that bite them, you know?
Yep.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, can I say just one thing?
Absolutely.
Talking about how do you enforce it? Okay, part of the reason I was bringing this up is that it's easy, because the cops have been called before when I had a lady who continues to bring an unspayed dog to this park, and it just happened yesterday. And so, a couple months ago, she called one of the Andover cops. It was a huge waste of time, because we have a bunch of people who are there who know Cooper and know us. We're conscientious owners, but this lady had an unfixed dog that was causing problems, and she wouldn't leave. So that's where this whole thing is coming from, and that's where I don't want to waste police time for this. And so it seems like a pretty clean thing to do, is that if it has a big sign up front says, spayed or intact only, it would ward off wasting any tax dollars. And plus, let's keep people safe, and so, yeah. All right, then am I done now?
Yeah, if you're done.
Thank you so much.
sir.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Absolutely.
I think this is the opportunity I won't probably have later because it's on the consent agenda, but I wanted to bring to your attention on a couple of things on the rules that you're going to vote on in the consent agenda. First thing, Jenny brought up the new rule about requiring them to have a collar with the tags on there. That's not it's a new rule, but it's a city ordinance that's been in place for many, many years. It's one that people really aren't aware of. But there's already an existing ordinance citywide where you're required to have a collar with the registration and your rabies tag on it. The other thing I wanted to bring up for the public, really, there's been some comments made, at your direction, we've made a big push to get the information out there and do an educational campaign to get the word out that dogs are to be registered. And there's been some negative comments that have been directed back towards the city about new rules for another way to gain money or taxes from the citizens. This law has been in existence for almost 51 years. It was adopted in April of 1970. So this is not a new rule. It is an old rule that we're trying to get people to get their dogs registered. The reason we want them registered is twofold. One, to ensure that they have their vaccinations. It's a health thing for the entire community. But also, it makes it easier for us to get that dog back home. If we find a dog without a registration and they're not chipped, we have no alternative other than to take it to the Wichita shelter, and there it costs the city money and it costs the owners money to get that dog back. If it's registered, has a tag, we can get it home and they don't have those expenses. But again, that rule has been in existence for almost 51 years. And one other thing, we've, not only do we have all 3 veterinarian offices now selling the tags here in Andover, we have 2 in Rose Hill and 1 in Towanda that are selling our tags. The way that came about is when I was meeting with a couple of the veterinarians here locally, with the procedure, they said, oh, we do the same thing for Wichita. Well, I thought if they do it here in Andover for Wichita licenses, because they have customers, I know people take their dogs to the Rose Hill and Towanda vets. Let's reach out to them, and they have all gotten on board. So that's all I want.
Mr. Mayor, Chief, can I ask a question about that? This may be a loaded question, so I apologize, but how come, since it's been on the books since 1970, have we not really pushed it or enforced it? Is it just council changes and what we perceive is important?
I think that's part of it. You've kind of, it seems like a lot of focus has been on dogs this last year. But we've always enforced it. We haven't done this huge education campaign. But it's always been, officers typically use, here in Andover, use a lot of discretion. This goes from, someone's dog gets out. Are we going to cite them? A tornado or a windstorm came down, knocked down the fence, their dog got out. Are we going to cite them? Probably not. So they use a lot of discretion. We get the dog back. If it's the second or third time in a week, then they're probably going to take it for running at large. But, so there has been a more of an emphasis placed on it this year. But we wanted to do the education campaign first, which is in full motion.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else like to come forward or any other comments on this during the public forum? All right, let's close the public forum and move on to the consent agenda. Acceptance of agenda, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to accept the agenda as presented. Is there any modifications or anything, Jenny? I move to accept the agenda as presented, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the consent agenda items 7.1 through 7.10 as presented.
Second. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right. 8-1, Music Theater, and Amy Cassette is going to speak to us via Zoom.
Yep, I'm going to talk real fast first, though, just to introduce her. As some of you on the council know, we met, I and the amphitheater committee met with some representatives from Music Theater Wichita at the end of last year to do some really cool things out here this next year. And we are here, or they are here tonight to ask some formal requests that the council has to formally approve. But the amphitheater committee did meet with them, and Angela is here from Music Theater Wichita tonight to do a quick presentation and answer any questions. And if she can't answer it, I'll try to answer it if it's something I can answer.
All right, and I'm sorry, I'll introduce you again. It's Angela Cassette, correct?
That's correct, just
Thank
like a
you.
tape.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just going to share my screen here and take you through just a few quick slides. I just want to say thank you, first of all, to the whole committee and most especially to Katie for really walking us through what might be possible. We are hoping to have an announcement go to season ticket holders this Friday and make a big public announcement. So for tonight, I'm not going to talk so much about show titles, but I am going to take you through dates. A little brief background. For those of you who are familiar with us, you'll know that we bring a lot of patrons down to Century 2 in downtown Wichita every summer, typically about 65,000. COVID brought us to a grinding halt like it did all performing arts organizations because it became impossible and dangerous for patrons to sit shoulder to shoulder, 2,000 of them in the concert hall at Century 2. And distancing inside the concert hall was completely unworkable. So in May 2020, we made the decision to cancel our 2020 summer season for the first time in our 50-year history. We feel very strongly that we need to return to live performance in 2021. And so to that end, we're planning a variety of safe live entertainment options. Outside is unquestionably safer than inside, and we are making plans as though this pandemic is still with us through the spring and summer and even into the fall. Even though all of us hope that we will be done sooner rather than later, we're planning as if we will need to keep with distancing and lots of other safety protocols for a while. So we were really thrilled to discover the Capitol Federal Amphitheater. It was not a space we had been familiar with before because we had only ever produced indoor productions. So we hadn't even been on the hunt for anything outside. And I just also wanted to mention that we always use a mix of national talent and locally sourced talent, and wanted to point out that our last season of live performances, we even had one of your Andover High School band teachers, Michael Raper, playing lead trumpet in the musical Chicago. So he was very busy and very instrumental to that production. So for this year, we are hoping to do out at your venue a musical theater production in concert during the month of April, which would leave us in your space from April 19th through May 2nd, most of that being set up, load in, but with performances April 28th through May 2nd. And we would be expecting 2,000 or more patrons at each of those performances. In May, we would expect to be out there for a concert beginning load in on May 12th and extending through the 16th. Then in July, we are planning a patriotic concert that we would do 2 times, hopefully, July 2nd and July 3rd. And July 3rd, we would be looking at doing a live fireworks display. Right now, we have not landed on exactly which fireworks company we will use, but we are looking at 2 fully licensed, reputable, insured companies. We're not planning to go to the local fireworks stand and set up a bunch of fireworks on our own. We would plan to follow up with city staff once that company was chosen to make sure there was a level of comfort from the city staff with whoever we picked. Then lastly, in September, we would be doing another musical theater production in concert. And again, expecting that 2,000 plus per performance. So what we believe that we can bring, in addition to monetary compensation, is we would be looking to brand the amphitheater essentially in all of our materials as the outdoor home for Music Theater Wichita in 2021. It's a really beautiful facility. There are a lot of people who have not yet been there, with it being relatively new. And we would be really excited to introduce our patrons and our board members and everybody to this really beautiful venue that you've built. We'd be including descriptions, photos, all of that in multiple communications, including press, television. I actually have lots of interviews set up already, so hopefully this all goes well tonight, because we're ready to really hit the ground running with this later this week. Our hope and our aim would be to not be much of a drain on city staff, especially as we learned the venue and all the ins and outs of it. We are accustomed to being self-sufficient and bringing a large crew with us to do everything we need to do. And then lastly, our attendees would be patronizing local shops and restaurants. We did a study a number of years ago that showed about 3 of every 4 patrons is from within Sedgwick County, and about 1 out of every 4, so 25% of our patrons come from outside Sedgwick County. Now, some of those are as close as Butler County, so this would be in their backyard, but we also have a lot of patrons from Western Kansas, Oklahoma, etc., and we believe everybody is going to be starved for live entertainment and will be really excited about the possibilities. I believe some of this detail may be before you already, but what the discussions we've had with city staff, we would be paying the city of Andover a fixed price of $80,000, which breaks down to $1,000 a day for those load-in tech days and $4,000 for performance days. Katie has communicated with us. There are some things that might fall outside of this. It would be inclusive of the things I have listed here: rent, fencing when needed, use of the lodge, police to some extent. We'd be looking at hiring overnight security and additional security as needed to not be a strain on police resources. And we also would be sourcing a lot of our own things, including sound and lighting for the scale of productions that we do. Any back of house facilities, including trailers or buses. Food and beverage is something that we would be likely to bring. We do not obviously have contracts with anybody yet, but we'd be looking at contracting with a bar company and also with some food trucks. We'd be getting additional portable toilets, paying for overflow parking as needed, the fireworks I mentioned, and then also security as mentioned. I'm sure there are other things. Since we have not typically been producers of outdoor events, we know that there's going to be a fairly large learning curve and expense curve for us this year, but we think that we can make it happen. So that is it for me, so unless you have questions.
Do we have a maximum number of people in order to keep it safe?
I would say that's a moving target, so I think we need to be in communication with the Butler County Health Department as we get closer to talk to them about, it's unique, we're outdoors. That's different than the 45 in this room that was the last cap that we had on a room from the state released many months ago at this point. Being outdoors, there's not been quite as much focus on a number, and again, I think it's a big moving target, so I couldn't begin to guess what April is going to be a recommendation. No doubt about it, we have to stay in communication with KDHE, Butler County Health Department, and I'm sure for the same reasons they would too, to make sure they're putting on a responsible event and not putting people at risk.
I just assume 100% of Andover will beat all these, so it'd be nice to know the maximum.
I would not assume that. That's
I would
more
hope
than we can comfortably have in the amphitheater in the best of times, so.
That's true. I will also say that last year, obviously in the thick of things when we were deciding whether or not to have our concerts, I did put together, based on square footage from our architects, a very conservative estimate. And if every single person was 6 feet apart in all directions, we could still fit 2,500. And so I don't think everyone is going to be 6 feet apart. Obviously, parents coming with their kids or families are going to be together. So I think we can handle a little bit more than that and still be safe.
Thank you.
At our venue over in Park City, it was 50% of seating capacity in 2020. So I expected it will be about the same or larger with the same stipulations, 6 foot apart. And there was only so many family members could sit together. I can't remember the exact number, but there was a number of family members. You couldn't bring in 21 family members to sit together. But I can't tell you specifically, but there are numbers in place but as far as capacity, it's 50% of your seating, or at least it was in October. So it's something we can go from. I don't know what our seating capacity is exactly, but we can.
About 10,000.
There you go.
Angela, is that something in the future, if we decide the cap would be 2,000, let's say, you'd be okay with that? And working with staff to get it done?
Yeah, we are, when we're also really interested in trying to figure out how to basically force people to sit in pods, and how we manage that with our volunteer staff and ushers. Some venues have gone to like spray painting circles, and we think we may have asked about it, and that might not be an option here, but there's got to be some way for us to exercise some crowd control and try to keep people apart. We're also looking at things like touchless ticketing and making rules like, there will be mask wearing in common areas, so that like if somebody gets up to go to the bathroom or gets up to go get a drink, that they would wear, like restaurant rules essentially, they would wear the mask while they're in close contact with other people, and then take it off when they're back at their seat. So we're completely fine with really anything we need to do to keep people safe. And if there is a venue cap, that's also fine. We'll work around those things.
At the risk of sounding self-serving, I mean, I'm kind of grateful that we have this opportunity because as we cautiously plan for a summer concert series, I will be very curious to see what these experts who do large events for a living, how they approach this seating arrangement type piece, because I find that to be a really interesting logistical piece that I'd like to learn from as we look at putting our concerts on later in the summer.
Angela, will you be providing the seating or will the attendees?
That's a great question. We are telling people you're going to bring a lawn chair. I would love, there are a couple of things. We're looking at a possibility of maybe doing a limited like VIP experience for some seating on the like terrace area that's outside the clubhouse. So I think there's possibility of there being a little bit of VIP seating there. We'd love to figure out some sort of partnership or sponsorship with somebody like a Coleman or at Bass Pro Shops or something where they could provide some seating right in that first area and basically have them bring in some of their branded seating, but we're not planning to go get, folding chairs or anything like that for everyone. It's going to be, bring your own blanket or chair.
What is a rain plan? Do you have a rain plan, Angela, or are we a little bit too early for that?
We're already not sleeping about those sorts of things. So obviously, it's Kansas, so there's going to be wind and there's going to be rain, and we're hoping to make sure that we have plans to secure whatever is on the stage, so that we've got the equipment is a little bit easier. We can roll things onto trucks, we can tarp things. We are working really diligently to get all of our subscribers' cell phone numbers, or at least as much as possible, so that we can do a text message service if there's going to be rain. And then right now we're holding we're not scheduling a Saturday matinee. So if it were to rain, say on a Thursday or a Friday, but it's dry by Saturday matinee, we could have a midday performance and have a reschedule that way. Other than that, it's going to be it would be really hard to do, and I think would be dependent on what's going on with our talent and what's going on with the venue. So hopefully it's going to be a really dry summer, or April through September. But that's the extent of our plan so far.
Katie, if the whole weekend gets rained out, are they still paying us, or is it? I didn't read that in the contract.
Yeah, so our policy that we have in place is that the use of the amphitheater is rain or shine. With something like this, if it's a whole weekend, I think if we have the space in our schedule, we would work to try to reschedule it. It wouldn't just be no, too bad. It's something that, it's going to bring a lot of people out here anyway, and it's beneficial for both of us to try to reschedule if we can.
Thank you.
I have a comment on the seating and stuff. I would hate to put, a cap on it today or anytime soon. But if we ever had to do something like that, I would agree with you, Mr. Mayor, of 50%, but I'd hate to say 20%. And, if they had 25 people show up, 2,500 people show up, or 3,000, that's better for them. But we can look at that later when it gets closer. We're still several months away from them starting something, so because I think if we put a cap on it, that would also, it could discourage people from even coming. So we need to be careful with that.
For sure, and my plans are to keep in touch with Angela throughout the process and monitor how many people have bought tickets and all of that, so that we are aware if we do need to cap it when we get closer, how ticket sales are looking, so that we can get that word out to everyone. If it comes to that, hopefully it doesn't.
And I think one thing we did on our when we knew we were gonna hit capacity on our bigger shows, pardon me, the online ticket sales, we would only sell 6 at a time so that we could keep the circle small instead of having, we had one family, for example, that always brings 19 people, and they have for years and years and years. So we put a cap on it so that we did our best to do social distancing with that type of strategy. Does that make sense?
I think one of the big differences there is you have seating, whereas here it's kind of
Free-for-all?
free-for-all, and just from past experiences, even though it was a kid's show and some dance, a recital this past summer, is you go to set your location of, this is my pod or this is my area of 6, and then along comes Dr. Ford with his family and sees an open seating, there maybe closer to showtime and sees it's closer to the up front, and he plops down his squad, right next to our pod, so I definitely think, Angela, from personal experience, we definitely need to work out the logistics on how you're gonna decide where people sit, even if it's a pod, blanket, their own chairs, whatever it is, just so other people don't just come in and sit wherever they want, kind of thing, so.
That's exactly how it works. It's people
Yeah,
are people, no matter where you're at.
You could probably
Yeah, that's
color
exactly,
code
that's been
sections.
exactly the conversation that we've had too, is that people will try to wedge their way in and we have to have a plan to make sure that,
You could color
Nobody
code the
would.
sections that would allow you to, so many per section. That way, the closer you are, maybe the more expensive the ticket would be, that type of arrangement.
And most, just like Jennifer, or Jenny, said, it's still fluid, so what we decide today might not even matter in June, we hope, so let's just, we'll take it as it comes to us.
Would we ever want to think about purchasing large tents for either rent or to use when it's bad weather outside? Maybe not necessarily the whole sides, but even if that's all open, you still had rain protection. Or at least figure out someone local that we could rent them from as needed. You've already done this. I can tell.
So we do have some larger tents that we use for our concerts in the vendor area. And those, they're not huge. I mean, I think it's 20 by 40 feet maybe is the one we use for merch. I'm looking at Rick because he's here and he knows the exact dimensions. But even those, I mean, those are pretty expensive. So if we get much bigger than that, it's going to skyrocket in cost.
I think the bigger issue is any tents in your viewing area is impeding the view of the people behind you. And
Sure.
that was really evident when, what was the group that did Little Mermaid Ballet?
Ballet in the park.
Ballet in the Park. A few years ago, it was a really sunny day and a lot of people popped up those umbrellas and it was a pretty big impediment to seeing the stage depending on where you were sitting. There weren't so many people there that you couldn't move and get around them, but in this situation, that might not work.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the selling of goods, services at Capitol Federal Amphitheater and the Lodge at Central Park on the dates included in the Music Theater Wichita's reservations, and approve the request to shoot fireworks on July 2nd and July 3rd, conditioned on approval from Andover Fire Rescue. Can I also add in city staff and maybe even Chief Keller in regards to the securities for it?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you so much for bringing this to us and letting us be a part of your shows, and we have a good relationship together for future as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. It's really exciting, I think.
Very
thank
exciting.
you.
Thank you.
Man, all of a sudden, man, there's something about the carpet up here that gets me every night. I'm assuming that Justin's going to speak to us because he's. All right. Community Development Purchase, 9-1. Justin Constantino will speak to us this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Justin Constantino, Assistant Director of Community Development. Staff is seeking the purchase of community development software designed to move our review process into a modern digital environment. The new software will provide applicants a portal to submit their application, make payments, track the status of their project. The software is capable of delivering digital solutions for building permitting, plan review, inspections, and contractor licensing. A selection committee consisting of the building permit technician, the Assistant Director of Community Development, and the Director of Community Development conducted virtual product demonstrations with 5 software providers. The selection committee ranked their preferred providers and sought formal pricing proposals from 2 software providers capable of meeting the city's desired needs, with the Acela Civic platform being the committee's unanimously preferred choice. The transition to digital planning software is a 2-step process. The first step involves existing data migration and program implementation. You may recall that a program implementation agreement was signed with Burn Software Technologies and approved by the City Council on November 24th, 2020. The second step involves licensing and subscription services. Staff is seeking the purchase of 10 user licenses from Acela Civic platform in the amount not to exceed $34,800. Future requests to renew the annual license will include an annual uplift of 3%. Staff intends to renew the annual contract for 4 additional 1-year terms. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions?
My only question is, and maybe this isn't how the city government works, but when we're talking about the 10 users, could we have one user and then under that umbrella put like different emails to use that same user? No.
Great idea. I actually had that same question when I started the process as well, but it does require 10 separate individual users.
That's what I thought.
Good try though.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate
Do
it.
they
I looked
allow-
at you, Troy, because you're IT, so that's.
Appropriate question, sure.
Do they allow the transfer of ownership to that license if one employee decides to leave to another employee?
Yeah, you could transfer from, we're purchasing the 10, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we need 10?
Yes, so basically, we set it up to include our immediate planning staff, a few members of administration, Public Works. There are a few members within Public Works as well. So basically, anybody that would need a review during a planning process, they would get one. So we looked at the number of users that would be reviewing a project. That's how we settled on 10.
And 34,800 plus 3% every single year?
That's correct.
Is that in your budget? Is that already in? is that
Yes,
already
correct.
in
It
the-
would be out of the community development budget, and when we were forming our budget for the 2021 year, we anticipated this purchase.
So it's 34,800 plus 3% every year, plus the,
The first step, which was the 94,750, which was previously approved on November 20th.
I thought we approved a yearly chart fee on that as well, or is that this?
That would be this.
Okay.
So this is the annual charge.
And just as a reminder, Sparks Dollars did pay for that purchase in 2020. I like to bring that up every chance I get.
We couldn't got the tense on that too, or anything, Jenny?
Right.
Hey, Justin, so will this help, sorry, Jenny, will this be part of the process that helps site plan review and those things, not having to have the hard copy dropped off at is that part of this?
Yes and no. So the site plan review will be making a transition to the iCompass software, basically digital packets,
Okay.
similar to the city council and all of our other community development committees and subcommittees. That will be happening independent of this. This is actually going to work hand in hand with that process so that the city can basically go paperless altogether. So it's going to fast track the application process. The applicant will be able to submit everything online, and it's a communication tool as well. So we'll be able to communicate with internal staff members as well as the applicant.
So no more paper in Les's office?
I assume there will still be some floating around. It'll probably migrate to my office.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to approve a subscription service agreement with Acela Incorporated, San Ramon, California, in the not-to-exceed amount of $34,800.
Second.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
The contractors and construction and anybody who does work who needs to use, are they familiar with this software, or is this going to be a whole new learning curve?
There will be a bit of a learning curve, and we intend to work with those frequent flyers, developers, applicants to get them working with us.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. All right, now we're moving on to member items.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any.
I just want to say roll tide. We whooped up on another team last night. Yeah, probably everyone knows who that is. So, but.
Was it Notre Dame?
And the black and whites got paid well, I have a feeling.
It was the good night.
Aflac.
I would say that my youngest is now a teenager, and I already got additional gray hairs on the side of just today, and I got a haircut. Yeah.
Why is it always got to come up to hair? Why we always got to bring up hair every council meeting, man? It's just,
No one else worries about you except you. I don't know why that would be exactly, but
man, I got gray
you
hair.
don't worry about
At
it. You
least
look
you
good,
have hair,
so
man.
it's fine.
Do you have anything?
I do not have any items, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So, most of us been here. Oh,
Did
go
you,
ahead.
Dr. Ford, did you have any? Okay.
Most of us been here together for a year now, and I cannot thank staff enough for babysitting the mayor and helping him through this time. Chief Russell, Chief Keller, Les, Susan, Rick, all of you have been tremendously helpful to me, to Lance, have been very helpful to me, and I can never tell you how much I appreciate it, because I would have not, I had no clue how to get through this year without y'all, and it couldn't have been a harder year with COVID and other things that transpired, so I just don't know how I could thank you anymore for the help you've given me and new council members to get our legs under us. And Justin too, I'm sorry. But all of you, I know I'm going to leave somebody out, but
Becky's here too, if you want to.
Becky, it's been no small task for staff to help me get to this point. So the phone calls are less than they were. Used to be 4 a day, 5 a day help. I'm freaking out, right? So poor Lance stole my office, but we'll get that cleared up before I'm out of here. So, all right. But
Happy
really,
anniversary.
Thank you. But seriously, thank you. And it's been quite a ride, but we'll get through the next year the same way we got through this one, swinging and kicking and scratching. All right. Thank you very much.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you all.